of the national population describe themselves as very racially prejudiced, which is a very small number. But Mr. Page said the survey's other findings suggest a substantial minority of British people are not tolerant. And that can all be found on the BBC website. For me, assimilation is a form of, I suppose, social laziness, you know, and it's an excuse not to get to know other people's cultures. I can't be bothered. They've come to this country. I don't really want to get to know them. They've got nothing of benefit to offer me. That's at its best. At its worst, it can be divisive, even more so than multiculturalism, particularly if people are felt to be alienated. You know, often immigrants come here to find work, and often immigrants come to not stay for a particularly long time. I'm British by birth and by heritage. My mum's English. But even within that, there are many different backgrounds, even on the English side. You know, there's part Scottish, part Welsh, and rumours of even some Jewish blood in me. So, you know, I think I can honestly say I'm really multicultural, multiracial, and because of that, I mean, you know, the idea of assimilation, I feel, is based on a sense of imperialism or colonialism. And perhaps is archaic, to say the least. I'm going to leave you with the words of Professor Sir Bernard Crick, who's chair of the Life in the UK, and he wrote a report which led to the new citizenship tests. He says, "I see no incompatibility between multiculturalism and Britishness. Britishness must be part of multiculturalism. In the report, I chaired advocating language and citizenship education for immigrants, the new and the old, 2003. We said, who are we British? For a long time, the UK has been a multicultural state composed of England, Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales, and also a multicultural society, made up of a diverse range of cultures and identities, and one that emphasises the need for continuous process of mutual engagement and learning about each other with respect, understanding and tolerance. In other words, dual identities have been common even before large-scale immigration. We further wrote, to be British means that we respect the laws, the parliamentary and democratic political structures, traditional values of mutual tolerance, respect for equal rights. But Britishness does not mean a single culture. Integration is the coexistence of communities and unimpeded movement between them. It is not assimilation. Britishness is a strong concept, but not all-embracing." Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Matthew, for your words.
Thank you, guys.
Two very valid points made there. So we'll now show you the opinions of special guests Jean Tuck and Daisy Line, and how immigration has affected the UK historically.
Right back to the sort of 10th and 11th century, when King's Lynn was the third biggest port in the UK. It was a really important place, so much so that it was part of the Hanse League, which was a very influential trade route in Northern Europe. It was seen as a really big player, if you like, and it's still part of the Hanse League, which is more of a social integration setup now, but we are still part of. And King's Lynn actually has the only Hanse League warehouse left in the world, so historically it's very important, and other parts of Europe see us as a very important place.
Well, because in actual fact, of course, in reality, it hasn't really affected it at all, because we were a multiracial town. We were a port, and all ports have foreign people come in, who some just come temporary, and lots of them stayed. But we traded so much. So, of course, people came. Some of them came on boats just to stay here, and some of them were merchants that came and went. But a lot of them married, you see. They married local girls. This has always been the case. And then other merchants went abroad and married other people.
Around about the late 50s, early 60s, when we had the overspill from London, which turned into sort of the back end of North Lynn, if you like. And I've researched this sort of quite extensively, and it really did seem that in that area and in that period of time, I think it was just post the Windrush, the first sort of modern migration, if you like, from the West Indies, and all the furore that went around that, and people getting used to people with different colour skin. I think that expansion of King's Lynn as a place with people from London brought its own brand of racism, which is quite overt, damaging, this sort of insidious behaviour that makes people from other parts of the world less able or less productive or less valued than people that actually live in the UK. Very colonial way of thinking, if you like. And a lot of people that I talk to say that racism in West Norfolk is, it's not hateful, it's just ignorance, and I don't buy into that at all. You know when you're treating somebody less favourably than yourself. You know if you're picking on, you know, a facet of somebody's being just because they're from a different nationality or they have a different skin colour, or, I mean, it goes the same white on white. A lot of people have a difficulty understanding that as well. But I think there is a lot of overt racism in West Norfolk. That does not help integration at all. But from a historical point of view, it seems quite, and it saddens me really that we've had this wonderful tradition of expansion and had the migration to West Norfolk has had a fantastic sort of economic impact on the area, that we've lost that feeling of welcoming and being, you know, a really diverse and an exciting place to live. A lot of people wouldn't say that about West Norfolk, but I think I would.
We didn't really have any foreign students at all for many years. We had some foreign teachers. We had French, and we had a gentleman from Lithuania who taught Russian, and but we didn't really have any foreign students as such. Gradually, of course, over the years, we started more or less with Chinese because the Chinese restaurants were in the town.
So, Daisy, you mentioned overt racism. What do you mean by this?
Oh, exactly what I say, overt racism, which is name-calling, treating people less favourably, not serving people in shops, shoving people off buses, physical damage to property, physical damage to person, over, in your face, no question about what people are doing and why they're doing it.
Thank you very much.
From what my researchers have told me, one of the frequent complaints on immigration for the indigenous population is loss of tradition and national identity. Excuse me. Not so long ago, there were calls from a small percentage of Muslims for Sharia law to be introduced into British law. Most Britons voice their disappointment and think it's a strict oppression of freedom. Women especially are at risk of cruel and violent punishment. Throughout recent years, even flying the national flag has been considered inciting hatred. Where does it stop?
Currently, as we speak, millions of lights are being switched on through towns and cities around the country in celebration of Christmas. Despite commercial opportunity, will this tradition die under the current influx of mixed immigrants? Some opinions?
No, of course not. Christmas is Christmas, and it's up to everyone to preserve Christmas, basically. I mean, if you ask Manish, they still celebrate Christmas in Leicester, despite, you know, myths put about by various people.
Thank you very much.
It's a complete nonsense to say that Christmas would sort of disappear or that people won't have Christmas trees or that sort of thing. If you go, as Manish will tell you, to Leicester, you'll see everybody having a lovely time celebrating Diwali, and then a few weeks later having an equally wonderful time celebrating Christmas. You know, people like to have the opportunity to let their hair down and celebrate something. But this whole argument that sort of thing takes away from society comes from fear, doesn't it? It comes from a lack of knowledge, it comes from ignorance. And the way you overcome that is by showing people that there is nothing to fear and giving them knowledge rather than ignorance.
Thank you very much for the opinion. Rory?
European Employment Commissioner Vladimir Spidler reported in 2006 that Britain, Republic of Ireland and Sweden had seen a drop in unemployment, a rise in employment and economic growth after opening their borders to immigration. To get more depth on the subject, our team of researchers went out in search of information about immigration and its effect on the economy and employment.
It's very good to get the appropriate people into UK to get the economy going, but I do disagree with the illegal employment about people who's not coming properly and taking jobs that will affect other people.
I think when you're talking about migrant worker, you have to really think about who you're talking about and whether that's your typical migrant worker in the field, or whether it's